Mastering the literature review from searching to synthesizing. In this lecture, we're embarking on what I consider one of the most critical and transformative skills in doctoral education, moving beyond mere literature, searching to conducting rigorous literature reviews that generate new theoretical insights and establish the foundation for significant scholarly contributions. I want you to understand that we're not just learning how to find and organize sources. We're learning how to synthesize diverse research findings into coherent theoretical frameworks that advance knowledge, identify meaningful research opportunities, and position your work as an essential contribution to scholarly understanding. The literature review represents the intersection of systematic methodology and creative synthesis, where your ability to see patterns across studies, resolve contradictions, and generate new insights becomes just as important as your ability to conduct rigorous searches and assess study quality. This is where you transform from a consumer of research to a creator of knowledge, where you learn to stand on the shoulders of giants, not just to see further, but to point the field in new directions. By the end of this lecture, you will possess a comprehensive toolkit for conducting integrative literature reviews that go far beyond summarization to create new theoretical understanding. You'll master Cronin and George's 5-stage integrative review framework, understand Torraco's approach to writing literature reviews that make theoretical contributions, apply Hiebl's sophisticated sample selection strategies, and learn to use advanced synthesis techniques that transform individual study findings into coherent theoretical insights. We'll be drawing on cutting-edge methodological frameworks that represent the current state of the art in literature review methodology, combined with practical tools and technologies that will make your review process both more efficient and more rigorous. Learning objectives. The learning objectives represent a comprehensive transformation in how you approach literature reviews and their role in scholarly contribution. First, you will master the distinction between different types of literature reviews: narrative, systematic, meta-analytic, integrative, and scoping reviews, understanding not just their characteristics, but when each approach is most appropriate for different research purposes. This isn't about learning arbitrary categories. It's about developing the methodological sophistication to choose the right tool for your specific research goals, and to justify that choice to skeptical reviewers and readers. Second, you will learn to apply Cronin and George's 5-stage integrative review framework, which provides systematic guidance for conducting reviews that generate new theoretical insights rather than simply summarizing existing findings. This framework represents a significant advancement over earlier approaches that were often criticized for lack of rigor, providing you with a systematic yet flexible approach to literature synthesis that maintains scientific credibility while enabling theoretical innovation. Third, you will master Torraco's approach to writing integrative literature reviews that make genuine theoretical contributions, learning to move beyond description to analysis, synthesis, and theory development. Torraco's framework addresses a critical gap in literature review methodology: how to actually write a review that creates new knowledge rather than simply organizing existing knowledge. Fourth, you will understand and apply Hiebl's 4 approaches to sample selection in literature reviews: exhaustive, representative, purposive, and pragmatic, learning to match your sampling strategy to your research purpose while maintaining methodological rigor. Hiebl's research reveals that sample selection decisions, often treated as mundane methodological details, actually determine the entire quality and contribution potential of your review. Fifth, you will develop advanced synthesis skills that enable you to identify patterns across studies, resolve contradictions through theoretical analysis, and generate new conceptual frameworks that advance understanding beyond what individual studies could achieve. This represents the heart of integrative review methodology, the ability to create new knowledge through systematic synthesis of existing research. Finally, you will learn to leverage technology tools and resources that enhance both the efficiency and rigor of your literature review process. From reference management systems to qualitative analysis software to knowledge management platforms that support complex synthesis work, why literature reviews matter for doctoral success. As doctoral students, you must understand a fundamental reality about academic scholarship that will shape your entire career. The literature review is not just a prerequisite for empirical research. It's often the most important determinant of whether your research makes a meaningful contribution to knowledge. The difference between research that gets published in top-tier journals and research that struggles to find an outlet often lies not in the sophistication of methods or the novelty of data, but in how well the research is positioned within existing scholarly conversations through a compelling literature review. Consider two hypothetical dissertation studies on remote work and employee performance. Both use identical methodologies, analyze similar datasets, and generate comparable findings. The first student conducts a perfunctory literature review that simply catalogs existing studies and identifies a gap where no one has examined remote work in their particular industry. The second student conducts an integrative review that synthesizes findings across multiple contexts, identifies theoretical tensions in how we understand work arrangement effects, and proposes a new framework that explains when and why remote work enhances or diminishes performance. The first study might get published in a specialized journal and receive modest attention. The second study gets published in a top-tier journal, generates significant citations, and influences how the field thinks about flexible work arrangements. This difference isn't about academic marketing or superficial positioning. It reflects a deep understanding of how knowledge is created and advanced within scholarly communities. Academic fields progress not through the accumulation of isolated findings, but through the integration of findings into increasingly sophisticated theoretical frameworks that explain complex phenomena. Literature reviews are where this integration happens, where individual studies become part of larger theoretical narratives that guide future research and inform practice. The frameworks we'll explore today, from Cronin and George's systematic approach to Torraco's writing strategies, represent the current state of the art in literature review methodology. They're designed to help you conduct reviews that don't just meet the technical requirements of doctoral education, but that make genuine contributions to scholarly knowledge and establish your reputation as a thoughtful, sophisticated researcher. The literature review landscape, understanding your options. The literature review landscape is like a toolkit. Each type of review serves a different purpose, and choosing the wrong approach can derail your entire research project. Understanding the distinctions between different review types isn't just academic taxonomy. It's about developing the methodological sophistication to choose the right approach for your specific research goals and to execute that approach with appropriate rigor. Narrative reviews represent the traditional approach to literature synthesis, characterized by broad scope, flexible inclusion criteria, and subjective selection of sources. These reviews are particularly valuable when exploring emerging or complex topics where little systematic research exists, when providing background for grant applications, or when creating conceptual foundations for new research areas. However, narrative reviews are often criticized for potential selection bias and lack of systematic methodology. Systematic reviews provide comprehensive, unbiased synthesis of all available evidence on specific research questions, using predetermined methodology, comprehensive search strategies, and transparent inclusion criteria. These reviews represent the gold standard for evidence synthesis. However, systematic reviews require substantial resources and may be overly restrictive for theory development purposes. Meta-analyses take systematic reviews a step further by statistically combining results from multiple studies to identify overall effect sizes and patterns. These reviews are particularly powerful for resolving contradictory findings and identifying moderating factors that explain when relationships are stronger or weaker. However, meta-analysis requires studies with comparable methodologies and measures. Integrative reviews represent a middle ground that combines a systematic approach of systematic reviews with the flexibility needed for theory development. These reviews can include studies with diverse methodologies, focus on theory development rather than just evidence aggregation, and allow for broader inclusion criteria while maintaining methodological rigor. Integrative reviews are particularly valuable for doctoral students because they enable both comprehensive coverage and theoretical innovation. Scoping reviews map the breadth of research in a field and identify knowledge gaps using broad research questions and inclusive approaches to study types. These reviews are often used to determine whether a systematic review is feasible and to identify areas where more research is needed. The key insight is that there's no universally best type of literature review, only approaches that are more or less appropriate for specific research purposes. Your choice should be driven by your research goals, the nature of existing literature, available resources, and intended contribution to knowledge. Cronin and George's 5-stage integrative review framework. Cronin and George's 2023 framework represents a significant advancement in integrative review methodology, providing systematic guidance while maintaining the flexibility that makes integrative review so powerful for theory development. Unlike earlier approaches that were often criticized for lack of rigor, this framework provides clear procedures for each stage while allowing for the iterative, interpretive work that characterizes high-quality synthesis. Stage 1. Problem formulation represents the foundation of excellence in literature reviews. This stage requires you to develop research questions that are simultaneously broad enough to allow diverse methodologies and focused enough to generate meaningful insights. The SPIDER framework provides systematic guidance. Sample, who or what is being studied, phenomenon of interest, what concept or experience, design, what study designs will you include, evaluation, what outcomes or measures, and research type, qualitative, quantitative, mixed methods. Your research question must be theoretically grounded, practically relevant, methodologically feasible, and have clear contribution potential. Stage 2, literature search involves developing and executing a systematic but flexible search strategy that balances comprehensiveness with practicality. This requires multi-database strategies, advanced Boolean search techniques, citation tracking, forward, backward, and lateral, and application of the saturation principle, continuing searches until new searches yield minimal new relevant sources. The goal is not to find every possible study, but to find all studies that could contribute to your theoretical synthesis. Stage 3, data evaluation requires developing quality assessment approaches that go beyond standardized checklists to evaluate methodological rigor, theoretical contribution, and contextual relevance. Unlike systematic reviews that use standardized quality tools, integrative reviews require more nuanced evaluation that considers how different types of studies contribute to theoretical understanding. This involves creating multidimensional quality frameworks that assess studies on multiple criteria, while recognizing that different study types contribute different kinds of insights. Stage 4, data analysis represents the heart of integrative review methodology, the systematic synthesis of findings across studies to generate new theoretical insights. This involves thematic analysis processes that move from initial coding through theme development to theoretical integration. Advanced synthesis techniques include cross-case pattern analysis, temporal analysis, and contextual analysis that identify relationships and patterns that individual studies couldn't reveal. Stage 5, presentation involves organizing and communicating your synthesis in ways that clearly demonstrate your theoretical contribution. This requires structuring your review around theoretical themes rather than individual studies, using active voice to emphasize synthesis, connecting findings across studies explicitly, and presenting new theoretical frameworks or models that emerge from your integration work. Each stage builds on the previous ones, but the process is iterative rather than linear, with insights from later stages informing refinements in earlier stages. The framework provides structure while allowing for the creative, interpretive work that distinguishes high-quality integrative reviews from mere literature summaries. Torraco's framework for writing integrative literature reviews. Torraco's 2016 framework addresses a critical gap in literature review methodology: how to actually write an integrative review that creates new knowledge rather than simply summarizing existing studies. His approach has become the gold standard for doctoral students and researchers seeking to make theoretical contributions through literature synthesis. Torraco's framework rests on 3 pillars. The first pillar is conceptual contribution, moving beyond summary to generate new conceptual insights through what he calls conceptual leaps, connections that individual study authors didn't make, but become apparent through systematic comparison. This requires techniques like pattern recognition across contexts, contradiction resolution through boundary condition identification, and mechanism identification that connects what findings with why explanations from different studies. The second pillar is methodological rigor, being systematic without being rigid. This involves comprehensive documentation of every decision in your review process, transparent search strategies, and quality assessment approaches appropriate for diverse methodologies. The key is demonstrating thoughtful, systematic approaches to each stage rather than following rigid checklists that may not fit your specific review purpose. The third pillar is theoretical innovation, creating new knowledge through framework development. This involves identifying theoretical gaps where existing theories don't adequately explain patterns in your data, developing integrative propositions that connect findings across studies in novel ways, and constructing theoretical models that represent your new insights visually and conceptually. Torraco's writing guidelines emphasize organizing results by theoretical themes rather than methodological categories, using synthesis sentences that connect findings across studies explicitly, exploring contradictions rather than ignoring them, and showing how understanding has evolved over time. The goal is to ensure that every paragraph advances your theoretical argument, rather than simply reporting what others found. The framework recognizes that integrative reviews require different writing approaches than systematic reviews or meta-analysis. While systematic reviews focus on comprehensive coverage and standardized reporting, integrative reviews focus on theoretical insight and conceptual advancement. This requires writing that demonstrates synthesis, integration, and theoretical innovation while maintaining scholarly rigor and methodological transparency. Hiebel's 4 approaches to sample selection. Hiebel's 2023 research represents a breakthrough in understanding why many literature reviews fail to make meaningful contributions. His analysis of over 500 published reviews revealed that sample selection decisions, often treated as mundane methodological details, actually determine the entire quality and contribution potential of your review. Poor sample selection is the hidden killer of literature reviews. The exhaustive approach involves systematic search of all relevant databases with no date restrictions, multiple search strategies, and transparent inclusion-exclusion criteria. This approach is appropriate for well-established research areas with clear boundaries when you need definitive answers about effect sizes or relationships, and when comprehensiveness is more important than theoretical innovation. The advantages include definitive, authoritative conclusions and high credibility, but the disadvantages include being extremely time-intensive and potentially unwieldy with large literatures. The representative approach uses stratified sampling across key dimensions with purposeful selection to ensure representativeness. This approach works well for large, diverse literatures where exhaustive review is impractical, when you want to understand the breadth of a field, and when time constraints prevent exhaustive searching. The approach provides manageable scope with broad coverage and systematic sampling, but may miss important outlier studies and require strong theoretical justification for sampling decisions. The purposive approach employs theory-driven selection criteria with iterative sampling based on emerging insights. This approach is ideal for theory development or testing, when seeking deep understanding over broad coverage and when existing theories need refinement or extension. The advantages include deep theoretical insights and efficient use of resources, but potential disadvantages include selection bias and limited generalizability claims. The pragmatic approach involves explicit acknowledgement of practical constraints with systematic approach within defined limitations. This approach is appropriate for doctoral dissertations with time, resource constraints, exploratory reviews in new research areas, and when practical considerations limit scope. While realistic and achievable, This approach has limited scope and generalizability and requires careful limitation management. The key insight is that there's no universally best sample selection approach, only approaches that are more or less appropriate for specific research goals. The decision should be based on research purpose, literature characteristics, resource constraints, and intended contribution, with transparent reporting of rationale and limitations. Advanced synthesis techniques from data to insights. The synthesis process is where integrative reviews distinguish themselves from other review types. You're not just summarizing findings, you're creating new knowledge through systematic integration of diverse research findings. This requires both systematic rigor and creative interpretation to generate theoretical insights that advance understanding beyond what individual studies could achieve. Thematic synthesis involves a systematic process that moves from initial familiarization through coding to theme development and theoretical integration. The process begins with reading each paper multiple times and creating detailed summaries focusing on key concepts. Initial coding involves systematic coding across all papers using both inductive and deductive approaches. Theme development requires grouping codes into potential themes and looking for patterns within and across methodologies. Theme refinement involves testing themes against data and ensuring themes are distinct yet related. Finally, integration and synthesis connects themes to create overarching frameworks and generates new theoretical propositions. Cross-case pattern analysis looks for patterns that appear across different contexts, methodologies, and populations. This technique is particularly powerful for identifying universal principles that transcend specific study characteristics. Temporal analysis examines how findings have evolved over time to identify trends and explain changes in understanding. Contextual analysis explores how findings vary across different settings, cultures, or industries to identify boundary conditions and moderating factors. Contradiction analysis is crucial for theoretical development. Rather than ignoring conflicting findings, sophisticated synthesis explores contradictions to identify boundary conditions, methodological explanations, or theoretical insights that resolve apparent inconsistencies. This often leads to more nuanced theoretical frameworks that explain when and why relationships vary across contexts. The goal of advanced synthesis is to move beyond reporting what individual studies found to explaining patterns across studies, resolving contradictions through theoretical analysis, and generating new conceptual frameworks that advance understanding. This requires systematic analysis combined with creative insight to transform existing research into new theoretical understanding. Quality assessment in integrative reviews. Quality assessment in integrative reviews requires a nuanced approach that goes beyond standard checklists to evaluate methodological rigor, theoretical contribution, and contextual relevance. Unlike systematic reviews that use standardized quality assessment tools, integrative reviews must develop assessment approaches that recognize how different types of studies contribute different kinds of insights to theoretical understanding. Multidimensional quality frameworks assess studies on several dimensions simultaneously. Methodological quality involves evaluating statistical rigor for quantitative studies, sample adequacy, measurement quality, analytical appropriateness, bias control, and credibility criteria for qualitative studies, data richness, analytical rigor, participant voice, theoretical contribution. Theoretical contribution assessment examines conceptual novelty, theoretical integration, explanatory power, and generative potential. Contextual relevance evaluation considers setting appropriateness, temporal relevance, cultural sensitivity, and practical applicability. Handling quality variations requires strategic decisions about inclusion thresholds and weighting approaches. High threshold approaches exclude lower quality studies entirely, providing high credibility, but potentially missing innovative insights. Moderate threshold approaches include studies with varying quality levels, but weight their contributions based on quality scores. Inclusive threshold approaches include all relevant studies, but acknowledge quality limitations in synthesis. Sensitivity analysis tests whether conclusions change when lower quality studies are excluded. Critical analysis techniques help resolve contradictions and identify theoretical insights. Contradiction analysis involves identifying conflicting findings, exploring methodological and contextual explanations, and developing theoretical resolutions that account for contradictory evidence. Gap analysis identifies empirical gaps, understudied populations, missing methodologies, theoretical gaps, undefined constructs, unexplored relationships, and practical gaps, implementation guidance, intervention evidence. The goal is not to achieve perfect quality across all included studies, but to make informed decisions about how much weight to give different sources of evidence in your synthesis, while maintaining transparency about quality variations and their implications for your conclusions. Technology tools for literature review excellence. The right technology can transform your literature review from an overwhelming manual process into a systematic, efficient, and rigorous scholarly endeavor. However, with dozens of tools available, choosing the right combination and creating an integrated workflow is crucial for success. Reference management systems form the foundation of any literature review technology stack. Zotero offers excellent browser integration, robust PDF annotation, strong collaboration features, and works offline with no storage limits for most users. It's particularly good for collaborative projects and web-heavy research. Mendeley provides social networking features, institutional integration, and good mobile apps, making it ideal for researchers wanting to network. EndNote offers powerful organization features, excellent Word integration, and advanced search capabilities, making it best for large-scale reviews and institutional users. Qualitative analysis software enables sophisticated synthesis work, and Vivo provides advanced coding and theme development, cross-case pattern analysis, mixed methods, integration, and visualization tools with literature review-specific templates. TLAS.TI excels at theory development, with network views showing concept relationships and strong memo systems. MaxDay offers user-friendly interfaces with literature review workspaces and good mixed method support. Knowledge management and visualization tools support complex synthesis work. Obsidian provides linked note-taking systems with graph views showing concept connections and plugin ecosystems for customization. Rome Research offers bidirectional linking and block-level references with strong community support. Notion provides all-in-one functionality with database capabilities, template systems, and collaboration features. The key to success is creating integrated workflows that connect these tools effectively. For example, a workflow could combine Zotero for collection and organization, NVivo for deep analysis and coding, Obsidian for synthesis and theory building, and Word with Zotero for writing and citation. The most important principle is to choose 2 to 3 tools that work well together and master them thoroughly rather than trying to use every available tool. Common pitfalls and how to avoid them. The identified most common pitfalls that derail even well-intentioned doctoral students aren't minor mistakes. They're fundamental errors that can invalidate months of work. The literature laundry list trap involves simply cataloging studies without synthesis or integration. This reads like an annotated bibliography rather than a literature review and provides no new insights. The solution is to start each paragraph with a synthetic statement rather than a citation. Use citations to support arguments rather than replace them, and focus on relationships between studies rather than individual findings. The cherry-picking problem involves selecting only studies that support preconceived ideas while ignoring contradictory evidence. This leads to biased conclusions and missed theoretical insights. The solution is to actively search for contradictory evidence, include contradictory finding sections, and use contradictions to develop more nuanced theory. The scope creep disaster occurs when research questions gradually expand until reviews become unmanageable. This happens due to interesting tangential studies, pressure to be comprehensive, and lack of clear boundaries. Prevention involves writing research questions on visible reminders, creating explicit inclusion-exclusion criteria before searching, and conducting regular scope checks. The methodological snobbery error involves excluding studies based on methodological preferences rather than quality or relevance. This misses important insights and reduces theoretical richness. The solution is to value methodological diversity, understand what each method contributes, and focus on quality within method types rather than method types themselves. Other common pitfalls include recency bias, overweighting recent studies while ignoring foundational research, single database limitations, missing significant portions of relevant literature, and synthesis avoidance, organizing by methodology rather than themes. Each pitfall has specific prevention strategies and quality check procedures. From literature review to research contribution. Your literature review isn't just an academic exercise. It's the foundation for your entire research contribution and scholarly career. Understanding how to transform literature synthesis into research opportunities is crucial for doctoral success and long-term academic impact. Beyond simple gap identification, sophisticated literature reviews create research opportunities through theoretical integration, boundary condition identification, process mechanism discovery, and methodological innovation. Each type of contribution requires different approaches to literature synthesis and leads to different types of research programs. Theoretical integration contributions combine existing theories to create more comprehensive understanding. Boundary condition contributions identify when, where, and for whom existing theories work. Process mechanism contributions explain how and why relationships occur through underlying processes. Methodological innovation contributions develop new ways to study phenomena based on synthesis insights. The transformation from literature review to research program involves strategic planning across multiple phases. Phase 1 involves completing integrative literature review and identifying theoretical opportunities. Phase 2 involves theoretical development and refinement through additional analysis and expert feedback. Phase 3 involves empirical research design with multi-method, multi-study approaches. Phase 4 involves implementation and impact through systematic execution and dissemination. Building research impact requires strategic publication planning across different journal tiers, multi-channel dissemination through academic and practice channels, and long-term career development that establishes scholarly expertise and research identity. The goal is to transform literature review insights into sustained research programs that influence field understanding and establish your reputation as a thoughtful, sophisticated researcher. Next steps and implementation strategy. Learning about literature reviews and actually conducting them are very different things. Success requires translating today's insights into concrete action steps for your own research journey. Your immediate action plan should begin with foundation setting, refining your research question using the SPIDER framework, and getting colleague feedback. For approach selection, use Hiebl's framework, documenting your rationale, and creating inclusion, charge, exclusion criteria. Next, set up the tools by choosing and installing reference management systems, establishing organizational structures, and practicing with sample articles. Next, focus on developing your search strategy, identifying relevant databases, developing search term combinations, conducting preliminary searches, and refining terms based on results. Execute systematic searches, documenting your process meticulously, beginning with initial screening and setting up tracking systems. Next, conduct a deep dive analysis by focusing on full text review, quality assessment, initial coding, and pattern identification. Conduct thematic development, systematic coding, theme identification, and drafting theme definitions. Common initial challenges include finding too much literature, usually indicating overly broad research questions, not finding enough relevant studies, possibly indicating overly narrow focus, studies being too different to compare, often a feature rather than bug of integrative reviews, and uncertainty about synthesis approaches. Start with simple pattern recognition before complex integration. Building support networks involves developing academic support systems, advisors, peer groups, writing groups, expert consultants. Long-term success requires maintaining momentum through goal setting and progress tracking, ensuring quality through regular reviews and external feedback, and accessing continued learning resources through essential readings, online communities, and professional development opportunities. Conclusion, your literature review legacy. Your literature review is more than a dissertation chapter or course requirement. It's your first major contribution to scholarly knowledge and the foundation for your entire research career. The synthesis insights you develop, theoretical frameworks you propose, and research questions you generate will influence not only your own research trajectory, but potentially the entire field's understanding of your topic. The frameworks we've explored today, from Cronin and George's systematic approach to Torraco's writing strategies to Hiebl's sampling methods, represent the current state of the art in literature review methodology. They provide you with tools to conduct reviews that don't just meet technical requirements, but make genuine contributions to scholarly knowledge and establish your reputation as a thoughtful, sophisticated researcher. Remember these key principles as you embark on your literature review journey. First, maintain rigor with purpose. Be systematic, but remember that rigor serves the goal of insight generation rather than being an end in itself. Second, practice transparency with confidence. Acknowledge limitations honestly while confidently presenting your contributions. Third, focus on integration with innovation. Synthesize existing knowledge to create new understanding rather than simply organizing what others have found. Fourth, connect theory with practice. Ensure your insights have real-world applications and implications. Your challenge is to transform from a consumer of literature to a creator of knowledge. Use the frameworks, tools, and strategies we've discussed today to conduct a literature review that doesn't just summarize what others have found, but generates new insights that advance understanding and inspire future research. Great literature reviews aren't just comprehensive, they're transformative. They change how we think about important questions and open new avenues for understanding. That's the standard we're aiming for, and with the frameworks and tools we've discussed today, it's absolutely achievable. Your literature review legacy begins now. References: